Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Maya Rizki Fauzia, and I am one of the faculty members in Politeknik Negeri Malang. Today, I am going to present the result of my study, of which title is Students' Perception Toward Implementation of Task-Based Learning or Task-Based Instruction in Online Reading Class. My presentation comprises of 5 sections. The first is background, followed by objective, and then the last 3 are methodologies, findings, and also conclusion. All right, without further ado, I am going to jump into the first section, that is background of my study. Okay, so last semester, I was assigned to teach a reading class that was forced to shift into online learning because of COVID pandemic. So in my reading class, I had difficulties to interact with students. In conventional reading class, it was easier for me to have an interaction with students because I could meet them face to face, and then my students could not dodge any question from me. So if I ask them question, then they have to answer to my question. However, such interaction was getting more challenging in online class. So teaching is basically an interactive act. So teachers have interaction with students individually, a group of students, or a whole classroom of students. At the same time, students can also have interaction with another student, with a group of students, or with the teacher. Teaching or learning is about interaction. In terms of reading, reading is an integral part of language learning because it allows students to get input from from the material and also from their surroundings. However, reading class compared to productive skill classes tend to be a little bit more quiet. So activities in reading class focus more on asking students to read and also answer comprehensive questions. So as the result, reading class is often very quiet, and some students might find this quietness a little bit monotonous. It also happened, unfortunately, to my students. So when we shift from conventional learning into online learning, I could see that their motivation in reading class was gradually declining. I understand that there are restrictions in online learning, especially when it comes to interaction. It was a challenge for students to have an interaction with their teacher, with me, and also with fellow students. In order to engage students into learning, I tried to find a learning approach that not only improve my students' reading skill, but also foster interaction between students and also between student and myself as teacher. Based on the result of my reading and also discussions with fellow lecturers, I decided to apply TBI or task-based instruction for my reading class. Okay, so I am going to go to the second part, that is a literature review. So I'm going to talk about interaction, its significance, and also its definition. So according to Brown, interaction is collaborative exchange of thoughts, feeling, or ideas between two or more people, resulting in a reciprocal effect on each other. So interaction requires more than one people. So basically, interaction is a process of communication that involves two or more people on expressing and receiving a message in the form of ideas, feelings, or opinion. Another expert, which is Chodron in 1998, argued that interaction promotes language proficiency because the first, only through interaction can learner decompose the target language structure and derive meanings from classroom events. Second, interaction gives learners opportunity to incorporate the target language structure into their own speech. And the third one is interaction. Meaningfulness will depend on the extent to which communication has been jointly constructed between teachers and learners. So in short, interaction is very important in the teaching and learning process because it can facilitate students to improve and explore their language ability through communication with each other. So from communication, students are exposed to new inputs, and then they will internalize the input, store it in their head, and then use it to formulate utterances, be it oral or written utterances. Therefore, from here, we can learn that interaction plays a vital role in language learning. And then there are 6 types of classroom interaction. The first is interaction between teacher and the whole class. This takes place during usually lecture. So when teachers provide explanation about a concept to the whole classroom. And then the second pattern of classroom interaction is interaction between teacher and group of students. Say, for example, teacher divide students into a small group and then ask them to do an assignment. While they are doing the assignment, the teacher walk around the classroom and then ask students whether or not they have difficulties doing their task. The third pattern of classroom interaction is interaction between teacher and one student. This can take place in the form of question, answer, or probably feedback giving when teacher asks one student to come to the front of a class or to see them in the office and then provide feedback toward their assignment. And then the fourth part is interaction between student and teacher. So as what I mentioned before, learning involves not only teacher but also student. So patterns of classroom interaction number 4 is the interaction between student and teacher. This is pretty common in language learning. Say, for example, students are asking question, asking confirmation to teacher. And then the fifth is interaction between student and another student, which can take place in the form of pair work, say, for example, or information gap. And then the last one is interaction between student and a group of students, which can take place in the form of group work. So say, for example, students are asked to, produce certain genre of text, and then they work together, providing opinion, agreeing and disagreeing in order to produce this piece of required text. Okay, so because my reading class last semester is on online learning, it is a must for me to talk about technology because online learning is closely associated to technology. So research or studies have revealed that technologies actually promote interaction. So there are various different types of technology that fosters interaction. For example, textbooks, multimedia that combines between audio, text, and also image. The third one is stream audio and or video. And then the fourth one is synchronous and asynchronous communication tools. For example, discussion board, instant messaging, voice chatting, and file sharing. So instead of impede learning, technologies actually facilitates learning as long as we can, take advantage of means of technology. So it depends on the language instruction itself. Okay. All right. So earlier I mentioned that the type of approach that I adopted is task-based instruction, or here is task-based language teaching. So the definition of task-based language teaching is, according to Dorothy, TBLT is an approach that provides students opportunity to actively participate in activities to achieve an outcome or complete a task. So based on this definition, we can infer that TBLT allows students to have interaction between one another in order to complete a task or to achieve an outcome. TBLT or TBI includes several procedures, that is goal of the task, and then procedures or probably steps in doing the task, and also specific of result. So if you want to apply task-based instruction in classroom, you should have these three components: goals, procedures, series of steps, and also specific of result. Moving on, we have advantages of TBLT or task-based language teaching. The first advantage is that it helps learners to interact spontaneously. So while they are completing their task, learners will interact among one another spontaneously. During their interaction, then they will acquire, they will pick up new language. The second one is it provides essential conditions for language learning. So task-based learning allows students to use the target language that they learn in a real context. And then the third is TBLT maximizes scope for communication. And at last, TBLT allows experiential learning. So while completing the task, while trying to produce an outcome, then students will experience a lot of things, including producing oral or written utterances. Thus, they can learn which concepts that work and which ones that do not work. So this, I believe, counts as experiential learning. Okay, so having discussed about the background and also some background theory, then I come to the objective of my research. So the objective of my research is to describe learners' perception towards implementation of task-based instruction, or TBI, in online learning class. So through this research, I would like to probe data or information from my students about their attitude toward task-based instruction in online reading class. So in order to achieve the objective, here is some brief description of the research design. So this study is a quantitative research, and two students taking reading for daily communication class became the respondents in order to identify their opinions or their perceptions. I use a close-ended questionnaire. So close-ended questionnaire was distributed to all the respondents. The questionnaire involved five point Likert. Comprises of strongly agree to strongly disagree. So, in order to probe their opinion about task-based, I feel that I need to explain to you about the task itself. So I asked my student, the task that I asked my students to do was to create infographic of inspirational figure. So this task consisted of 5 steps, and then I incorporated technology in each of the steps because this class being an online learning class. The first step is brainstorming. In brainstorming, I describe to my students the task and then the expected outcome. And for that, I invited my students and I made a list of inspirational figures. So each student selected one inspirational figure. To achieve this objective, we use two platforms. The first one is Zoom, and then the second one is MindMeister. So in MindMeister, it's like a web where students wrote down one inspirational figure that they would work with, and then the reason why they selected the figure. And then step number 2 is getting exposure. In getting exposure, students were more active because they were searching for information about this inspirational figure. And then at the end, we had reports. So students reported to the whole classroom about their information searching. For this purpose, we use WhatsApp. And then the third one is planning. So planning referred to a phase when students drafted content of their infographic. For this, we use Padlet. Padlet is like an online bulletin. In Padlet, not only students could make draft, but other students could also comment on their draft. So they could type comments, or they could give stars. And then the fourth one is discussion. So having made their draft, then we had discussions where students could give feedback towards each other's work orally. So peer feedback and also teacher's feedback. For this, we use Zoom and also Padlet. And the last one is creating. Creating is the step when students created infographic. For this, students came up with their own platform. The most frequently used platform was Canva, but some other students also use Poster My Wall and Microsoft PowerPoint. So the findings are 100% of the respondents stated that TBI foster interaction between lecturer and students. So meaning that from the steps of TBI, they could have interaction to the lecturer. And then the second finding is that 85% of the students stated that TBI provide opportunity to interact with other students. So if you see the steps, then there was ample opportunity. There were ample opportunities for students to interact with each others. They could interact through written form and also oral form. The third is 90% students agreed that TBI allows students to use language in real context. 75% stated that through the task, they learn new vocabulary. And then 80% said that the task allow them to learn how and where to search for information to make their infographic. And then the last is 100% of the students admitted that the task enhanced their digital literacy. Being an online class, students were forced or were asked to use various different platforms to achieve their goals. And it's very interesting that this task not only improve their skills and allow interaction, but it also enhance their digital literacy. One of the skills that is very important these days. So the conclusion is that students have positive attitude toward implementation of TBI in online learning class. According to them, TBI fostered, the study suggested that TBI fostered interaction and enhanced digital literacy. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is all for my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. See you later.